3 scary, true urban exploration horror stories. There's an abandoned motel called the Royal Hawaiian Motel. It's been abandoned for, I'm pretty sure, well over a decade. I do a lot of solo urban exploration, sometimes at night. The Royal Hawaiian Motel is located in Baker, California, and during the day it gets scorching hot. Too warm to be on foot around with my backpack, so I selected to go to the inn at some stage in the night. It was very smooth to get to. I parked on the facet of the street and walked over. There absolutely turned into no fence or something to jump over, and there was no safety. It'd become one of the easier structures to get to that I've explored for sure. In the back, become a absolutely deep pool with a ton of graffiti. I shined my flashlight up at the actual lodge, and I observed 1 or 2 of the upstairs room's doors were slit open, barely or just absolutely shattered. Kinda creepy looking, but also expected because the location were abandoned for see you later. Of direction other people have explored there. A part of the inn additionally seemed it were engulfed in flames and partially burnt down. I appeared around the outdoor for a touch while. It turned into overdue at nighttime, so there have been no sounds of close by passing traffic. Besides the sounds of my footwear stepping over numerous pieces of debris. At one factor, my blood ran cold when I heard a voice from someplace within the region. It seemed like a female's voice. My first instinct in these eventualities is to count on it's a few type of security worker, or somebody who might also cause problem for me. So I commonly have a tendency to walk out of sight and disguise. That's what I did. I ran to one of the other rooms on the ground level and grew to become off my flashlight. I waited just a minute, and after listening to not anything, I turned it returned on. I appeared round this little room I was in, and the walls had been littered with graffiti. There become most effective 1 piece of furnishings in right here. It become a touchcloth cabinet with like 4 drawers on it, and then some dusty, grimy antique mattress at the ground. I wondered if homeless humans could come and sleep here, but clearly it is just up to now, far away from any actual civilization that I doubted it. I left the room and continued across the hotel. I would peek in or each little starting on the floor under the overhead walkway for the top degree rooms. Each room became pretty, just like the closing, with distinct miscellaneous graffiti and writings on the walls and old dilapidated fixtures. Then I heard a crash kind sound from above, like something falling over. I felt my heart bypass a beat. I went back out of doors and pointed my flashlight up at the walkway above, at the broken glass doorways. I felt a rush as I determined to move up there and check out the rooms. What I felt like, deep down, changed into that there was an animal in one of the rooms. However, there is constantly that hazard, which you run into other explorers, or perhaps a homeless character in locations like this. I made my manner upstairs and peeked into each room that I surpassed. They had been all similarly supplied, with junk, debris, vintage mattresses, and peculiar pieces of vintage fixtures. As I walked in addition down the walkway, a banging sound became audible. It were given louder as I endured to walk. It became a constant, sluggish banging, like thump, seconds, thump, seconds, thump. Someone changed into here. I approached the door to the room I turned into advantageous that it become coming from. As I were given nearer, it stopped. Uh-oh. Maybe they heard my footsteps. I introduced to whoever changed into in there that I'm simply an explorer, and I imply no harm. I peeked into the room with the flashlight now off. It'd become nearly pitch black in there. However, I'm 50% sure I saw the shape of someone a touch further into the room by means of the lower back wall. The room smelt like instantly feces. I pulled my head out from the room to appearance, down at my flashlight, and flip it on, however, in a cautious function, to not factor the light proper into the room, proper, away. I aimed it down before everything at the ground, after which peered into the room once more, and slowly pointed the light into the room, and I noticed two pale bare toes drawing near me, speedy. In a muscle jerk reaction, I pointed the mild-up grater to completely reveal this lady with a bloodied brow and yellow guck on her mouth, which was hanging open. It'd become a sight from a nightmare. I changed into out of there so short. I heard the lady screaming as I turned into running away, and her screams failed to get much in addition away, which instructed me she turned into chasing after me. I ran down the stairs and lower back outside. I ran the complete way lower back to my automobile. I wasn't observed this some distance. I known as one among my suitable friends, George, who is also into city exploration. I had invited him to come with me at the start to this place, but he become not able to. I informed him what simply came about. We got here to an unusual and demanding agreement that the thumping I turned into listening to become that girl banging her head at the wall, consequently why her forehead was so bloody. When I requested, if I need to call the police, form of just wondering out loud, he stated honestly now, not as I'd be admitting to trespassing. I sincerely drove around the on-the-spot vicinity by way of the Taco Bell and some shops in the region searching out a payphone, so I could anonymously call the police about this deranged, risky girl. However, glaringly, payphones are certainly an aspect of the beyond, so it turned into only a pointless effort. What I ended up doing become calling the non-emergency number and reporting the deranged woman, but additionally claiming I was not the one to discover her. Alternatively, I heard someone else had run into her. I changed into as vague as possible, and I hung up. Because I didn't need to stick around there. I do not know if the police in the end went to analyze, however, something was incorrect with that woman. She ought to have been in a psych ward or something. In all of my years of exploring, I'd by no means encountered something like that. A few years ago, I lived in a small town. My circle of relatives determined to move us 4 hours away to get away from all the drama. While my dad and mom had been out of city selecting out homes, I added my friend over, and known as Up My Cousins, to take a bit street ride. The vicinity I desired to go became quite a whole lot off limits. However, we have been daredevils and wanted to enjoy something frightening. We picked a place that became 3 hours away, referred to as Bryce Hospital. This vicinity changed into supposedly haunted due to the records of it. It was a psychiatric facility in which they might preserve mentally unwell human beings. There had been rumors about how some of the sufferers had been mistreated and tortured. As the populace declined, they finally closed down. Over the years, the building began rotting and succumbing to nature. We decided to depart around 11 p.m., so we ought to make it there by 2 a.m. The automobile experience became quite a laugh, and we had been all very pumped to peer what we would locate. We arrived around like 2:43 a.m. and stopped at the start of the dirt road that led to it. We sat there for a few minutes, taking into consideration if we have to virtually do that or now, not due to the fact we already had an awful feeling. After 10 minutes of watching a dark road, we determined to move on. As we went down the road, it felt like it would never cease. The grass became absolutely grown, and there were branches everywhere. It turned into pitch black, and we could slightly even see the road. We subsequently made it to the building, and as soon as we did, all of us simply stared in amazement. It changed into large. The roof became rotted off, and vines had been developing all around the partitions. In the center of the car parking zone, or what changed into once the automobile parking space, had a large vintage water fountain that still had vines growing from the perimeters. It was so darkish we could simplest see what the headlights illuminated. We became the automobile off and were given out. We started out strolling into the building, and the primary thing I observed become pentagrams sprayed all over the walls. We saved on foot farther in, and made our way up the steps, which turned into very difficult considering they have been almost non-existent. We climbed a ladder, and were given onto what became left of the roof. We appeared round, and observed a mild inside the front of the building. It seemed like a telephone light. We called out, however, no person answered, and the light vanished as quickly, because it appeared. My cousin advised us to follow him into every other room so he could make sure we have been safe. But I had a horrible feeling. I wandered off into another room that turned into proper beside the room they were in. I appeared round and saw vintage mattresses and more graffiti. I heard my cousins speaking, whilst all of a unexpected, I heard a faint sound. It became like a person threw a rock at the window of the room I changed into in. I failed to assume something of it and kept looking round. I met back up with my cousins and friend. We decided to visit the basement to check it out. Once we were given down there, we needed to take a ruin, because it was hard getting to the lowest, because of the steps being smashed. We sat there, catching our breath, until we heard a voice from the back of the room. We all paused, searching at each other. I changed into too afraid to move, fearing something becoming in there would come after me. My cousin walked, returned there slowly, and shined his mild round. As the light reached the a long way give up of the room, he saw a person squatted, searching towards the wall. My cousin commenced backing up slowly, with the mild, nevertheless, on the fellow. Once he were given lower back to where we had been, he lifted us out and started pulling himself out. Once we were out, he yelled to the person asking if he was okay. The guy turned around and stared blankly at us. There turned into a moment of silence before the person let loose wild screams. He began going for walks toward us. We all started screaming and running away. We had no concept wherein to run, but ended up mountain climbing out of the window. We ended up in the woods, at the back of the constructing. I consider running and screaming due to the fact I heard the man proper behind me. My cousins have been some distance beforehand of me, and I saw their flashlight slowly fading. I bumped into such a lot of bushes that my entire frame started out to pain. I ultimately caught up to them in a clearing. We found a path and began looking for our manor back to the auto, but we ended up going the incorrect path for an hour and decided to returned and try the opposite path. It changed into a grueling manner lower back, but we eventually saw the constructing again and sighed with remedy, understanding we weren't a ways from the car. As we approached the car, we heard rustling in one of the bushes by means of the building, and like earlier, then a rock flew out and hit my buddy. We saw the person emerge from the bush, and we had to make a run for the auto. As we have been walking, the man was a respectable duration in the back of us, two in which we may want to open the doorways and lock them as soon as we were given in. We commenced up the auto, and whilst we did the headlights, turned on most effective to reveal the man jogging in the direction of us. He began banging on the windows with a pitcher bottle. We placed it in power and took off out of there. The entire complete time we were heading domestic, we sat in silence. I suppose we all felt the equal sense of surprise, My frame turned into shaking. After that night time, we never had any hobby in urban exploring ever again. This happened in the geographical region of Georgia. I changed into 15 on the time with my brother Seb, who turned into 18. Seb was massive on exploring creepy locations, and he somehow heard of this large abandoned residence not a long way from us, from a person he knew. I guess he didn't want to explore it by myself, so in the future he delivered me together with him to check it out. Seb parked the auto in as an alternative hidden area, included by a bunch of trees. The house assets wasn't visible from here. We'd have to walk down this concrete avenue that absolutely hadn't been touched in forever. There were large cracks with grass and weeds developing through it pretty much anywhere. All the grass around the road was overgrown, almost overtaken with weeds as nicely. Suddenly, we observed a lady down the street strolling at the back of us in our path. I requested Seb what we must do, and he stated to just play it cool. If we started out to run, it would appearance suspicious. The girl become on foot, with each her hands folded in the back of her back, as if she have been going for a calming walk. We saved taking walks at our normal pace, perhaps choosing it up a piece, simply barely. I turned round yet again, and she became an awful lot nearer now, and I should see a smile on her face. She become looking lower back at me. Then she said, "Cute day nowadays isn't always it." My brother and I simultaneously answered, "Yeah." She saved strolling in the back of us, getting closer and closer, then as she changed into nearly proper on pinnacle people, along with her hands still folded in the back of her again, she said, "I must go to mattress now." Seb and I checked out each other with careworn appears. We each picked up the tempo now, without announcing a word to every different. We just noticed in each differing's faces that it changed into time to hurry up and escape from this female. My brother turned around one last time and said, "Have a first-rate day, ma'am." We stayed in this velocity walk tempo for a while, and the following time we became around that female turned into gone completely off the street. That meant she should have taken off into the woods, which turned into relatively creepy. It was actually a chilling start to this little field trip. We made it to the house. It changed into surprisingly deteriorated. There had been vines of ivy growing up positive elements of the walls. Some of the glass windows have been shattered, which means it have been explored before. And that is precisely how we entered the residence, through one of the broken windows. We climbed in, ensuring now not to cut ourselves on any damaged glass. Right from the begin, there was a variety of stuff left in the back of, like all the fixtures, albeit it regarded a little worn out, all the wall decor, the little decorations on the coffee table. Even when we went into the kitchen and checked the fridge, there were food objects left behind. Very rotten food objects. Opening that fridge turned into like getting smacked inside the face with the scent of loss of life. After checking the entire first floor, we went right down to the basement. The basement, just like the first floor, became nevertheless completely provided, despite the fact that down right here become loads messier. There were a ton of factors like free sheets of paper and rubbish spread out at the floor. The carpet become a dwindled blue shade. There was a little bit of mild that got here into the room through the windows at the pinnacle of the walls. And then we heard a noise from upstairs, a awesome thump. We each just iced over like statues waiting for any form of noise once more. Within some seconds we chalked it up to simply being a noise of an old deteriorating house. There wasn't an awful lot else to look in the basement, so we went back as much as the primary ground, and the best region left to check become the upstairs. At the top of the stairs, from what I bear in mind, became the restroom directly in the front of the steps, and then to the left became a small hallway that brought about an open door. and then the hallway reduce, left. I don't bear in mind what changed into to the proper, however I'll tell you why in a 2D. Seb and I went left and into the primary doorway. It'd become a bedroom, a decently sized bedroom, but it failed to appear like the master suite. There was a double bed in there, and a vintage searching cloth wardrobe. There'd been some antique articles of garb left in the back of inside the wardrobe. Nothing I wanted to touch. Seb left the room first, after which he stated my name in a completely concerned, scared-sounding tone. I seemed up at him, and he become searching down the hall. I stepped into the corridor and saw what he become looking at. It was that lady from earlier, standing in front of the mattress in another bedroom at the quit of the short hallway. She was still smiling like before. She opened her mouth and said, "Do you want to see what's behind my returned?" My brother screamed, "Fuck you," and he pushed me to begin jogging. We both made a beeline for the front door, and sprinted to the outside. I couldn't assist, however, appearance, back on the house on the upstairs windows, waiting for her to be at one in every of them, but she wasn't. I additionally just had to ensure she wasn't chasing after us. We kept running till we have been out of sight from the residence, after which we stored running some greater, even though my cardio sucked, and I was out of breath. When we in the end made it again to the automobile, I gagged, seeking to throw up from exhaustion. We got inside the vehicle, and Seb drove us domestic. The complete ride we could not prevent theorizing what it become that just came about. We stated it might were a few loony lady off her meds, or escaped from a intellectual facility or something. Maybe she changed into dwelling in that deserted residence. But even explaining all of that away, the massive query is, what did she have at the back of her returned and turned into she keeping it that whole time she turned into, strolling in the back of us? So many questions as a way to, in no way, be responded. Thank you for watching this spine-chilling tale on horror stories. If you enjoyed The Licking Nightmare, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends to spread the chills. Subscribe to our channel for more terrifying creepypastas, true horror stories, and eerie narrations that will keep you up at night. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a scare. Stay safe and keep the lights on.